Alright, let's do this one more time. Hey guys. It's been a minute, right? What do you say we have a chat? First off, if you don't know me, you're new to the channel. My name is Will, or Gloom. I am a queer leftist, so if you don't like those things, you should leave. It's not an insult to you, I'm just saying you probably won't get along with me at all. If you don't care about those things, or you agree with those things, then stay. I am a aspiring filmmaker, actor, lots of ers in there, mixed martial artist, specifically a jiu-jitsu practitioner. I'm an eating a white belt. Might start making videos on those, we'll see. I'll talk about all that at the end. And you are watching my channel, Gloom, where I talk about basically anything that I want to, or am interested in at the moment. Anything niche that comes to mind. Now, something I don't really think I've mentioned all that much is my interest in indie animation. Indie animation is great. I've always been in indie animation. We got there eventually. Apologies for the remix. I've always loved animation. It's one of the fathers of filmmaking, in my opinion, of current filmmaking, and some of the best pieces of film have been animated. Spirited Away, for one of them, The Boy and the Heron, Into the Spider-Verse to an extent, if you agree with that. Some of the best TV shows are animated, like Blue-Eyed Samurai, The Clone Wars for some people, growing up on that stuff, Ben 10, Teen Titans, all that shit. And I think indie animation is great for the animation industry. Because it allows new young creators to raise up their stuff, and it forces establishment things to lock in and actually put effort into the stuff that they're making. That's good. It's the same argument with people who don't like companies outside of the WWE and the wrestling scene. I don't know why. It's good competition. If those companies are good, it forces WWE to try and be better to match them. Because if they don't, people will go from WWE to a place like AEW, or New Japan, or Ring of Honor, or any of those other places. Like Action Dean. Anyways, one of these big indie animation series, probably the biggest one in history, maybe? Yeah, I'll say yeah. This is probably the most popular one in history. Is The Amazing Digital Circus by gooseworx. Gooseworx is great. She is such a darling from what I've seen the one time that I've interacted with her via Q&A. She is great. And she is also a great writer. Of course, we wouldn't really be seeing this without the help of Glitch Productions. Glitch Productions are the Salvation Army at this point. With the amount of series they pick from nothing and helped make into something. Murder Drones, Knights of Guinevere, that one show with Schlatt in it that I don't remember the name off the top of my head. Like, Murder Drones, all that stuff, right? Lackadaisy, also, who they announced they were funding back at Glitch X last year, I think. Don't quote me. The Amazing Digital Circus isn't my favorite. Out of all of these, that would probably go to either Cog or Lackadaisy. Or probably Gaslight District. Gaslight District's probably my favorite. But it's one of the most interesting to think about because of the lore. As someone who has read I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, it's somewhere in my room, and I don't remember where it is. I get it, but I don't know where it is. Sorry. As someone who has read that and just has a love for adaptations like that, who will take the source material. TADC is not an adaptation, but it's inspired by it. You can see it in the most recent song in the episode 8. Yeah, episode 8. And more importantly than that, I just love when indie filmmakers and creators get to create stuff. It helps that TADC is really interesting from a lore perspective, from a writing perspective, and from a cinematography perspective. We're going to touch on the lore front today, and if you guys are interested, as an aspiring filmmaker, I might get into the other two. Specifically, the cinematography around Jax. That stuff's great. But that's a spoiler for a video that might not ever exist. So let's focus on the stuff that we do know that will exist. The lore. That does exist. The lore. Oh, the lore! In the words of Tom, Game Theory, and all the others. I don't know your names, I'm sorry. Lee, Game Theory, and then the two others. I don't watch Food Theory or Style Theory, so I'm sorry, but you guys seem great. Santi, and I don't remember the girl's name. Is it Amy? It might be, I don't know, but that's beside the point. Now, for those who either haven't watched The Amazing Noodle Circus or haven't watched it in a while and need a refresh, I'll brush you up. The Amazing Digital Circus follows a woman named Pomni, or at least named Pomni now, that she has entered this place called the Amazing Digital Circus, or just the Digital Circus, I guess. I don't know what it's called in the universe. It is a computer program controlled by Caine, a creative AI ringmaster type character with clattering teeth as a head with two eyes on the inside of the teeth. She is accompanied by a bunch of other people who are trapped in this place. Zooble, who is incredibly irritable and made out of multiple parts. Gangle, a ribbon lady with a drama mask. I don't know how I lost that. Who is incredibly emotional. Jax, the troublemaking bunny. I shit you not. He's also Tumblr's favorite sexy man as of recently. Kinger, a lovable goof and the oldest of the team, and the affable Ragatha, who is a ragdoll in the style of Raggedy Ann. Now, specifically, I want to focus on abstracting today and what that really means, because it's kind of vague, but with the new episode, I'm pretty confident I've solved what it is. That's a lie, I'm not confident, but I am at least interested in sharing it with you guys to see what you think. If you think I'm wrong, do not be afraid to tell me. I'm a big boy, I can take some criticism, and I would love to hear what you guys think. Now on to the actual theory. Now, abstracting, for context, is supposedly when your mind has gone through enough trauma and craziness in the circus that it breaks. It snaps like a twig, and you go cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Its symptoms are confusion, seemingly seeing trippy visuals beforehand, and then becoming a giant polygonal eye monster that acts like an animal and has to be shoved in the cellar. Which I would also say is just kind of a symptom of living in St. Cloud, Florida, or Gary, Indiana, but that's neither here nor there. Now, these people don't live in Gary, Indiana, or St. Cloud, Florida. They live in the Digital Circus, so it's a little more complicated than that. Seemingly, abstracting at its base form is when somebody transforms from their avatar, which is like what they look like in the circus. Pomni is this weird short little jester thing with multiple colored eyes, mostly blue and red, into a giant quadrupedal polygonal black beast covered in multicolored eyes that is incredibly aggressive and has no longer any reason, or at least more than basic thinking. It's mostly primitive now. That's not entirely true, as we see with Queenie's abstracted form, but we'll get to that. Now, what do we know about the avatars? Well, we know that they have at least a version of the person's mind within them. I don't know if the clone theory is true, but if it is, it doesn't really matter, because all we know is that it has some form of consciousness inside of their brain, or inside of the avatar, that mimics at least what they were like when they were alive. Outside this circle. And we know that once that consciousness is broken down enough, and gone through enough stress and gone cuckoo enough, it expands up into this giant quadruped, goes crazy, and has to be shoved in the cellar by Caine. And originally I didn't think anything of this, until we got to episode 7, where Kinger says, quote, "Scratch, the first abstraction." And I didn't understand what it meant at the time, because it was such a vague, statement. But thinking of it now, after having seen episode 8, in conjunction with what is said before, the context, which is Caine saying that he can't mess with people's minds more than temporarily, or it would be bad, air quotes, I might have an idea. Now, Scratch, for those who don't know, is a former member of the circus, and before that was a member of C&A, which was this programming company that made AI that created Caine. He had a tumor in his brain, according to Kinger. And apparently he was the first person to abstract. He was also reportedly a genius. Keep that in mind. Now, what have we seen all the people that abstract? That's Queen, that's Kaufmo, and we haven't seen, but we've at least heard about Scratch. And also Rivet, I guess. We've not seen literally anything of him beside him being mentioned. All of those people supposedly became incredibly stressed, incredibly cuckoo, and then abstracted. Why do you think that has happened? Because if it hasn't, then Jax would have not taken so long to abstract. Jax would have just gone. In that scene where he's tripping balls in the beach episode, oh, I'm seeing shit, man. I don't think there would have been any saving him. My theory is that when someone abstracts, they do not just die or go crazy and snare. My theory is that abstracting is when someone goes so crazy that their brain is ejected from the avatar back into the real world. Walk with me, please. I know that sounds psychopathic, but just hear me out. Okay. You hearing me? Good. Okay, so my biggest evidence for this is this one line from Caine. Now, this is interpretive, so you can take it multiple ways, but he says in episode 8, they won't abstract, they won't leave me, I won't let them! Now, you could look at this as, oh, he doesn't want them to abstract, so he won't be alone, because they'll all be down in the cellar crazy. And that is true to an extent. I view it as something else. The way it's said implies that abstracting is a choice. He says, they won't abstract, they won't leave me, as in they won't get the chance to, or they're not going to be able to. Like, they are not going to be able to make the choice to. Now, abstraction doesn't really seem like a choice. It more so seems like something that you go through, like an issue. But if abstraction is when someone's mind leaves the circus, and Caine is so upset, it would explain why Caine is so obsessed with keeping the others there with him, making sure they're not abstracting, making sure they're always having fun, because he doesn't want to be alone. Now, this can be true whether or not, all I'm saying doesn't prove anything. This all just proves that Caine doesn't want to be alone, and that doesn't require that their brains have been ejected from the digital circuits. They could just be all psycho down in the cellar. Until you take into the fact that our avatars of our characters are influenced by their brains. It's implied, or at least, I don't know if it's implied or if it's directly said, but I remember it mentioning multiple times that your avatar in the circus is influenced by who you are as a person. Like, let's take Zooble for a chance. They are genderqueer. I don't know if they're non-binary. I don't know if they're agender or gender fluid or any of that stuff. I'm just going to go by genderqueer because I don't want to be rude, and they use they, them pronouns. Okay? Okay. Well, they are genderqueer, and more importantly, they have body dysmorphia, seemingly, from their interactions talking about themselves. It's the therapy session with Caine. And so how's this represented in the circus? Well, they're made up of a bunch of different mismatching pieces. Every episode you see a different little, slightly different combination of these pieces as Zooble desperately tries to get it right. That's a representation. Wow. That's a good representation of that. Now let's take this logic and apply it to abstracting. If someone were to abstract, if someone were to go crazy actually, do they lose every single ounce of who they are? Not most of the time. Usually when someone goes crazy, they do change, but they don't lose every aspect of them. Some of their aspects are still in there, and that's implied to be true in this as well. With Queenie in her scene with Kinger, when Kinger reaches out to her in the shadows, in the cave pillow fort thing, and her edges soften out and she becomes less angry. So, let's take that and apply it to our characters. If you were to abstract, that means that you're going to change. That implies that your avatar is changing, implies that your mind is changing a lot, losing the very essence of you physically. Now, let's say you were to take someone's brain out of their avatar, what do you think it would look like? It would revert to its most primal instincts, and it would become a cookie-cutter, basic version of what the computer knows, which is polygons and eyes, because of Caine. Think about it. Why do Queenie and Kaufmo's abstractions look the exact fucking same? Why do they default to being quadruped? Why do they all look the exact fucking same? Why? It's because the game. Without the mind to influence what the avatar is supposed to look like, the game doesn't know what to do. Caine's AI doesn't know what to do. So it just defaults to polygons and shapes. Specifically, I don't know if this is relevant, but I'm going to mention this anyways. In episode 7, the fake hero character Abel mentions how Caine always had problems with square and like cube physics. That feels like a important line. I don't know if that's just added for effect, but if that's true and that was not just part of his little plot to see if they would stay with him willingly, makes a lot more sense why these things are made out of polygons that are constantly glitching together. And another little bit of evidence that I don't know if this really supports my point, but I'm going to say it anyways for the sake of, like, being clear. I do find it very, very interesting that we're not shown how Scratch abstracted because of his brain tumor. I'm very interested to see how that looks, because the way Kinger says his whole Scratch, the first abstraction thing, in response to Caine mentioning how he can't mess with people's minds. Maybe Scratch realized what was going on and abstracted willingly. Or maybe Caine caused his mind to be ejected because he was trying to mess with his brain tumor. Because it's implied that Scratch was making something in episode 8. He mentioned, it's not implied, it's said. Kinger says that specific line. He was making something, which was going to be the second AI, I believe. Which, my original plan, what I believe is that the reason they can even go into this is Scratch wanted to save himself. He wanted to preserve his mind. So he wanted to create something that would allow him to preserve himself. Therefore this. Caine, wanting to prove himself, because we've seen he definitely has an issue with he loves being praised, doesn't like being insulted, wanted to continue this path. He wanted to do that too. But he wasn't as good at it, seemingly. So that's why they're all in here. Maybe Scratch realized this and figured out how to leave by abstracting. It's why I'm most convinced with this theory is why Caine consistently equates abstraction with just leaving the circus. I feel like Caine could fix them. It's implied that he could, because he's been known to change their minds before. Now, he isn't causing all these abstractions because he doesn't want them to happen. If he could prevent them, like, I believe it's been implied that he could, why hasn't he? It's not about repairing the mind, it's like that the mind isn't there anymore and Caine can't make up the difference. He doesn't know what humans are like. It's why the crew has such a bad relationship with him. There you go. I'll admit this theory is half-baked. I'm making this video on a whim, and this is almost 20 minutes long, oh my god. But, all in all, my main theory is that abstraction is when someone's mind has been ejected from the digital circus, not that they've gone crazy. And it might be revealed that the only way to escape is to abstract, because that's the one thing that Caine has desperately tried to stop them from doing. And maybe if they found the abstract, we might get a good ending. I don't know. That's just me. Now, before we go, I want to talk a little bit about this channel. Now, you guys know this is a variety channel. I tried to make a short film on that. One day I'll make a video talking about the behind the scenes of Night Terrors and how horribly that went. I've made videos about Fortnite. I've made like 15 different ARGs that have never finished properly. Wink. I've made lots of things, so I want to know from you guys what you guys would like to see more of. More theory content, maybe more streamlined than this video, hopefully. maybe you guys would like to see my jiu-jitsu stuff, because I'd love to record that stuff. It'd be good press for White House MMA. Go to White House MMA if you live in St. Cloud, Florida, or just in that general area. They're great. Please. You can always use more grapplers. I could make more film stuff if you guys would like. I could make videos talking about the film, the cinematography and the filmmaking and the writing of the Amazing Digital Circus, like I mentioned earlier. Amazing? Yeah, good job, Will. Oh well, I just want to make more videos because I really like doing it. Even though I'm not really good at doing it professionally, I want to be good at it. Hopefully, with my room getting renovated soon enough, I'll be able to talk about more stuff, and I'll get better equipment, and we'll see from there. Alright. This has been Will from Bloom. I hope you guys had a great night. I hope you guys continue to have great days. I'm going to go down the list of things I want to say. Free Palestine, fuck Trump, happy Trans Day of Visibility, because that's when this is being recorded. Fuck ICE, fuck imperialism, free Palestine, free Sudan, free the Congo, free Oman, free Sudan. Fuck capitalism, and a bunch of other fuck-isms, like fuck fascism, all that stuff. Okay, if you didn't like anything of what I said, the door is there. Please take it, and don't let it hit you on the way out. Alright. For those who like those, stick around. You're going to like me a lot. Alright. It's been good. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye.